everybody streaming? I have no idea. Good to see you. Is anybody streaming?
Yes.
You're kidding? Are you serious? You. I haven't seen you that long. Been here 3 years. How are you? You good? Good, how are you? What are you guys working on?
Something else, we just left. We gotta come see you.
Lo voy a poner aquí al lado.
All right, is everybody ready? Okay, well, thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for your patience. It's always got a lot going on, but all of you wanted to get our reaction to the video, basically that went viral this weekend of two of our officers, but really one of the two that was a little bit more egregious than the other in terms of Philip, Mr. Philip there, who I actually have spoken to before. He's a man that likes to videotape police officers, and in our conversations over the last couple of years, he's talked about how he really believes that most police officers are good people. In fact, he believes the vast majority are good people, but he is of the strong belief that it's important to keep officers honest by videotaping their activities. And one of the things that I will say about that young man who's the videographer in this case is that in most instances, at least that I'm aware of, where he has engaged in his lawful right to videotape police officer, he's always done it in a manner that is respectful and doesn't actually interfere. He's very different as it relates to some other folks that, and I won't say any names, but we know there's a couple of anarchist groups out there that don't videotape police officers, they actually go out there to agitate police, and that's not generally the case with this young man. Having said that, we are aware of the encounter. As I said earlier, this weekend, the video depicts actions by members of our department that are not consistent with our policies, our procedures, our training, and our expectations. And so we've launched an internal investigation to ascertain exactly what was going through our officers' minds, why they did what they did, but quite frankly, to follow a process that we're required to have by law. With that said, the investigation is not going to be done in 32 minutes like some people think it's going to be. We're going to follow a process. We have contractual and legal obligations and processes that we have to follow. And so when we're done with it, we'll obviously report back to the community what our final findings are and what the consequences are and actions taken by the department, if any. So with that, I would just ask people to be patient. Let us do our due diligence in terms of an internal investigation, but we will get it done as soon as we can and report back. So I'll open it up to questions, and then we'll take it from there.
The officers appeared to stay relatively calm during this video, as far as we've seen. Where did they stray from policy? Can you speak to that?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of what I see. I think that if you read our policy, which is in very plain English, it's not a very complicated policy. We're very clear as to the rights of our citizens and our members of society to videotape. And it's very clear on what they can and can't do. So I'm not going to comment specifically on what I believe in terms of the specifics of the incident or my command staff believes. I will tell you that I've had police officers come up to me in our department and say, yeah, they've seen the video and they weren't very happy with it. And that's rank and file, folks. So I would just ask people, the video's out there. Here's the policy. It's on our website. I think, Mr. Maxwell, that you actually tweeted the policy earlier, and make your own decision. But I'm not going to talk about what's good or bad in it.
Typically, then, in a situation like this, would an officer consider calling in a supervisor, knowing that the situation was dragging on and on, there wasn't going to be an adequate resolution?
Well, I think that, again, I'm not going to talk about the specific incident. I think the incident speaks for itself, and I think that anybody that reviews our policy and reviews that video from start to finish will make their own conclusions. I'll wait to have our investigative process take course, and then I will report back our findings.
Why is it important that you have a
Well, first of all, this is a free country, and we are a department that believes in transparency. And what I'm really proud of in terms of law enforcement is that when you look at the challenges, societal challenges that we're facing as a nation, law enforcement's really at the forefront, I believe, in terms of a deep desire to improve our profession, to build bridges with our community, and a big piece of that is transparency. If you think about the mistrust of government in this nation, where the mistrust of government is at an absolute fever pitch, historic high, it's extremely high, the mistrust of government, the way that we build trust with the community is through transparency and through engagement and through having actual respect for the community we serve, holding each other accountable, the community holding us accountable, us holding the community accountable when they don't do the right thing. And when we do these things, I think we end up with much better outcomes, which means we build trust. So transparency builds trust. And so there's a big difference between videotaping and inserting yourself and interfering. And that's why our policy is clear, it's succinct, nobody should really be confused by reading this policy. And so anybody that wants to know whether it's a policy violation, I think when you look at the video and you read the policy, you can pretty quickly draw your own conclusions, but we'll let the investigation take its course.
Has any disciplinary action been taken against the officers, any kind of administrative duty, leave, or are they still on the streets?
I can tell you that one of the officers is not on patrol as of this weekend. He's been pulled from patrol because when you look at the attitude in terms of not really being concerned about policy and dismissive of policy, we will not tolerate our officers being dismissive of policy. You know, policy is an absolute protective layer that if you're a police officer and you're diligent in terms of your profession, you learn policy and you wrap yourself around with policy. It really is a shield. It's there to protect the police officers, it's there to protect the department, it's there to protect the taxpayer, and ultimately it's there to protect the community that we serve. And when someone shows a dismissive attitude in regards to policy, we're probably going to be taking a pretty harsh look at that individual and a pretty deep dive into their mindset and to their attitude and into the behavior that was exhibited.
What, if any, feedback have you gotten from the association on this incident?
I don't want to speak for the association, but, you know, I can just tell you that I think they share some of the concerns. This is a situation that, shame that we're here because we shouldn't be here. That's called a self-inflicted wound, that what people are thinking about is beyond me. And especially when you look at Austin, Texas, where we have a certain group that are absolute agitators that like to agitate and like to interfere and like to insert themselves. Contrast that behavior of certain people that do that to the behavior in this stop and in this context. We really shouldn't be here, and that's what's really upsetting to me when you look at the serious issues that we have to deal with in society right now. When we have the issues of wanting to build trust, when we have the issues of, you know, communities that are concerned about election. I mean, just, we have so much to deal with. This is a clear policy, and we really shouldn't be here. But we are.
This isn't the first time that Mr. Turner's encountered and perhaps, in my word, tried to test the policy. You're being sued by him in another case.
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk to that case other than to say that we are going to very rigorously defend that specific, you're talking about at the North Substation. Our officers did nothing wrong in that case. I look forward to our day in court because Mr. Turner looks at things through his own prism, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you why I think we're going to be just fine in that case, because I'll wait to be deposed. But let's not compare apples to oranges. Our officers did what I would expect them to do in that sort of circumstances at the back of a police station when somebody's filming routine, non-enforcement activity. It's a much different set of circumstances. So I'm pretty sure that we will be successful in that litigation.
The internal investigation, will you talk to us a little bit about that, especially considering the fact that, you know, you did tweet and say that these actions are not reflective of us, so how exactly know what's gonna be done and how can we make sure it's gonna be fair?
Well, listen, the investigation is a process we always follow. We will have our Internal Affairs Division and under the oversight of the Citizens Police Monitor, or the Office of the Police Monitor, actually go ahead and work on it. We'll get it done. We'll also audit both employees' videotapes. You know, we do normally we do audits, but when we have issues like this surface, we'll do even more intensive audit of those two employees. And then when we're done, they'll have an opportunity to tell us what they were thinking, or why they weren't thinking, or whatever they want us to consider. Then we will draw our final conclusions and then take appropriate corrective action, whatever that may be. And I'm not gonna speculate on that, what that will be, because you really don't know what it's gonna be until you have an opportunity to talk to the involved employees.
You said you're familiar with Mr. Turner doing these types of things in the past. Are there any other people here in Austin that you know of that are doing the same things in terms of videotaping?
Really?
On a regular basis that,
I'm not gonna mention the name of the group because I consider them anarchists, that all they're trying to do is interfere. Mr. Turner, the instances where I've seen him videotape our folks, I think he's always done it, from the ones I've seen of him, in a manner that's consistent with his rights to videotape. And the other group, that I'm not gonna mention them, you guys can do that in your story, I'm not gonna bring them up.
last question.
Do you know if he's filed a complaint with the police monitor on this?
Not that I'm aware of, but it doesn't matter. I think people believe that you have to have a complaint with the police monitor, and they forget that the Austin Police Department, the very vast majority of our complaints and actions taken are driven from an internal perspective, not from an external perspective. So whether he complains or not is not relevant. This is on our radar. We're going to conduct a thorough investigation, not just into this set of circumstances, but as it relates to the involved employees. We will audit the rest of their work to see if we find other instances where they've done things that may not be consistent with what our expectations are. But as soon as we're done, we'll report back. Listen, at the end of the day, nobody's hurt, nobody's dead, nobody's been beat up, but the conduct in there gives rise to some concern, some serious concern from my perspective, which is why one officer is not on patrol as of this moment, actually as of the weekend, and I promise to report back our findings. Okay? Is that
I
it?
know you're not happy about this thing being here, but in the past, you've had incidents where the videotape didn't come to you soon enough. Did this come to you soon enough?
Yeah, I think this happened pretty recently, so it's really important that, you know what, here's what I know about policing. This is the best generation of cops, and you know that there's no bigger supporter, regardless of what people may think, some critics, of my cops. I mean, I love my cops. I think the very vast majority are such honorable men and women that go out and do a phenomenal job day in and day out, that when you see stuff like this, it's just, it's very irritating because it doesn't help good policing, it doesn't help good cops. And so it is frustrating for me, because here I am talking to you all about something that, it wasn't a dynamic situation, it wasn't a situation where in a response to resistance fight, it's self-inflicted stupidity, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
That it? Nothing else? Okay, guys, thank you. Enjoy your day. Everybody ready for Thanksgiving?
Absolutely, like it, man.
I'm still trying to lose the weight from last Thanksgiving. Anything else? Thank you all. Sí, cómo no. ¿Quieres hacerlo en español aquí o quieres esperar que...? Aquí está bien, ok, no hay problema. Aquí, sentadito.